Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. It's time to get ready and start rolling into the new year, getting some of our projects done. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a thank you card for all the great loot that I got during Christmas. Now, it's okay if you don't celebrate Christmas, you still will probably need a thank you card sometime in the future. And I created this really super simple one, super simple to show you today. You can use it to thank people for your gifts, or you can use it really any time of the year. It's simple. It's just one color and that's it. It's just a one color card. So I hope you enjoy this. And if we haven't met, I'm Viv. This is Art with Viv, and let's go ahead and go to the studio. Okay, I have some hot pressed watercolor paper here. It is a 6x8, and then I have a bordered off 1/2 inch all the way around to make the final size is going to be a 5x7. You see I have the tape all around it, and that just takes care of that border. I'm mixing up a nice pastel blue. I am using my vintage pastel palette here, but you don't have to have it like a special pastel palette. What you can do is just take some of your regular blue watercolor paint and mix it with a little bit of white watercolor if you have one of those palettes that includes a white watercolor, or a little bit of white gouache or bleed proof P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. That's all you have to do is just mix a tiny bit in there, and that will make it be pastel. Just keep in mind, the more gouache you add in there, the more white that you add in there, the more opaque your watercolor will be, which is fine with me because I'm using it as a background. And I have got a 1/2 inch wide flat brush here, and I am just painting on that pastel blue into the background. I'm going to do 2 layers. This is my first layer. I'm just getting that in there, and I don't even care if it's even or not. That's fine with me. It doesn't have to be a perfectly flat background. All right, we're going to let that dry. Once that dries, we are going to go ahead and do a second layer. Then once that second layer dries, we're going to continue. As you see, again, I'm not caring that it is not a really even wash. I don't care because I'm going to paint over it, and I want it to look sort of rustic and handmade. I don't want it to look too perfect. Now, if you want yours to be perfectly smooth, that is fine. You do you. I am just doing the way that I have it envisioned in my head, and hopefully it will work out. All right, now I do not have good handwriting, so what I've done is I have printed out a thank you. I'm going to turn it over on the back. Obviously, I've practiced this before I've done it. I'm just going to take a regular number 2 pencil, go over the back of that thank you with that pencil, and then we're going to tape it into the center of the card, and I'm doing my card in the landscape style. But you could also do it portrait style. I just decided to turn it landscape, and then you're going to take your pencil and trace over the words so that it will transfer that graphite onto your painted background. Now make sure your background is completely dry. We don't want smudges and smears, so make sure that that background has been completely dried before you do this step. And then you'll just trace around the letters of each word, and don't press real hard or you'll leave like indentations on your watercolor paper, and that can collect watercolor in those indentations and it might look bad. So use some pressure, but don't like really press really hard, and you'll be surprised, it'll come right off. That graphite that you put on the back comes right off. There you go. Now, once you do that, you'll just mix up a nice darker blue. What I used is ultramarine blue, and then I just took a little bit of that really pale blue that we mixed up for the background and put it into my ultramarine so that it is a more pastel blue. And you'll just paint inside each one of those letters. Try to be neat. I am just using a nice creative, if I haven't already told you, creative mark mimic faux squirrel paintbrush. It is a pointed round, and I think it is a size 2. Not 100% sure, but it is a small size, pointed round, and it is made by Creative Mark. So then I'm just going to paint in the inside of this outline. And that is what we're going to do for the thank you. Now, I think I might come back and do a second layer if this is not dark enough. But I'm going to let you watch, and then I will return just in a second. Then once you get your thank you painted in the way that you want, you're going to let that dry. You don't have to wait for it to dry to do the next step, but you want to be really careful so that you don't smudge it. But the next step is we're just going to paint leaf shapes all around the edges. And what I've done is I have mixed up some more pastel blue, and it's just like a shade darker than the background and maybe a shade lighter than the thank you. So we're just really doing tone on tone on tone. It's really simple. You only have one color to worry about, and that's it. And then for your shapes, for your vegetation, your leaves, just vary the shapes. I'm doing some that are like rounded ovals on the ends. Some are long pointed ovals. You can do little circles that look like eucalyptus, where they are circles on either side of a stem, or you can make it look like berries. It's completely up to you what kind of shapes you want to do. Now, a good tip is before you start this, you might just want to get a scrap sheet of paper and practice a few different kinds of leaves, some different sprigs, whatever you want. Just try out different shapes and see what you really like. I'm just winging it here. I didn't practice beforehand, so I'm just blobbing in shapes and hoping for the best. And that's all there is really to it. It's not difficult. It's going to look pretty because we're not making it too complicated. It's all one color. It's just different shades of one color. If you wanted to add other colors, of course, by all means do. It is your painting, and you make it the way that you want to and the way that it just feels right to you. So I'm going to let you watch as I just add a little bit more foliage, and we're going to go all the way around the thank you, all the way around the edge. But we do not want to actually touch the thank you. We want to leave a little bit of blank space between the foliage and the thank you. Now, once you get all of your foliage in there, if you want to fill up those empty spaces in between, this is totally optional. Just do some little dots in between there. I'm just kind of experimenting. I wanted to see how it would look. So I'm just adding in lots of tiny little dots, but you don't have to. You can just leave the foliage as is and it'll just have the spaces between. Again, I'm just experimenting as I go. I have not did this whole card out beforehand. I've practiced some of it, but I did not complete one before, so I'm practicing as I go, and there's nothing wrong with that, and I encourage you to do the same. But again, just optional. Just put those little dots in there if you'd like. I'm just filling up space. I just like the way that it looks. It makes it look even more intricate than it actually is. And hey, it's my painting. I'm going to do it like I want to, and I want you to do your painting like you want to. That's how it's got to be. Now, once I got all my little dots in there, I decided I might want my thank you to be just a little bit darker. So I'm just going to add another layer on there just to darken it up. Again, this is optional. You don't have to do it. But again, my painting, I want to do it. If you don't want to, you don't have to. It's optional. So I'm just darkening that up, adding one more layer, and then I'm going to let that dry. And once it's dry, we will move on to the next step. Now, once you get those last letters in, like I said, let that dry completely because you don't want it to smudge. Once it's dry, through the magic of video, I'm just getting out my little cutter and I'm going to cut those edges off. I don't want it to have a white background, I've decided. So I'm just cutting off all of those margins with my nice little cutter. Then I'm just going to take my corner round and round out those corners. Now you can leave it like this, or if you've used a Strathmore card or one of those blank cards, you won't have to do all this. It probably already has it for you. And I might mount it onto some white paper. I don't know what I might do with it, but I hope you've enjoyed this. And if you have enjoyed this, then you might consider getting some bonus content by joining my Patreon. It's only $5 per month, and you get a whole ton of stuff like coloring pages. You'll get art downloads. You'll also get bonus videos and little tutorials, things like that. For $5 a month, it's a bargain. So I hope you have had a good Christmas, and I hope this new year brings you many blessings.